Hello, my name is Lucy Davis, and today I'm going to be talking about potential uses for social media in academic libraries. So as we've discussed throughout the semester, we are living in increasingly visual and technologically dominated times, and that is especially true for populations that are in academic libraries, so college students. So there's been a lot of discussion of ways in which libraries can respond and be adaptable to that. So different tools that they can use, and some of these I've listed here are Folksonomy's YouTube and Instagram, and there are of course many more. But in this presentation I'm going to go over first why it's important for libraries, especially academic libraries, to be involved in social media, and then also the particular advantages and disadvantages of those specific initiatives. So first, why is this important? We're in a service profession, so our first priority should always be our users, and we should always be thinking ahead about the needs of our particular populations. As Stuart Hales argues in his article Visualizing Information and Data, college populations have grown up with laptops and cell phones and social media, and so theirs is a visual culture. Even though librarians are used to being kind of mired in text and information, we have to be ready to adapt to new norms of communication if we want to stay relevant and accessible to our patrons, and allow them to take advantage of everything the library has to offer. I am interested in this particular topic because I know that even I, as someone in school to become a librarian, have not taken full advantage of the libraries whose communities I've been a part of. I use libraries for their traditional purposes, for example, checking out books for pleasure reading. I've always done a lot of that, and doing a lot of online research as well. But libraries offer so many other events and services that are just not visible to me through the communication channels that I use and check regularly. I think that libraries are incredible, and it's a shame when they're underutilized. So I use this presentation to brainstorm based on an article by Heather Howard et al. Titled Academic Libraries on Social Media. Use that article to brainstorm some effective ways that academic libraries could use social media. So Heather Howard and her associates at Purdue University found that students would, when surveyed about how the library could be more involved in social media, said that they would most prefer to have library information given to them through Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And so I've just decided to focus on Instagram because it seems to me that now that's the most popular social media platform. And also I think that Facebook and Twitter serve similar purposes in that there's a news feed that people of college age would check regularly. So for Instagram, I found mostly advantages when I was brainstorming about this, that it's widely used, as I just said. It's easily integrated into daily life because there are other reasons that someone would be checking their Instagram. People are always scrolling through it, and so if they follow a library, they're much more likely to see news about the library. So it's a good way to announce new library events or initiatives that might spark someone's interest and get them to come in. And it's also not labor intensive, so when you think about time put in by librarians, it can be very simple if it's just going to be an Instagram post rather than like a YouTube video, which I'll discuss next. The only disadvantage that I could think of for a library being on Instagram is just that messages must be kept short, so to have that be the only way that you're delivering information to people could be a little limiting, could force librarians to have to condense important or complex information into an Instagram message, and it could trivialize the message maybe. So the students surveyed in this study saw YouTube mostly as a resource for library service information. So I was thinking of this as more potential for instructional or informational videos about the library if there's a more complex process or more in-depth news or an advertisement for an event or lecture that's coming up. YouTube might be better because it can go more in depth. It's also remotely accessible, which is true of obviously the other social media platforms, but with YouTube, if you're going more in depth about explaining a process, that's just an extra advantage to having to come in person to get that same information. So fulfills the goal of being accessible. And then it's also easily shared. Like, you don't have to have a YouTube account or anything. You can just share a link from one person to another, and they could have the same information very quickly. Some disadvantages is just that it doesn't encourage people to come into the library as much if everything can be found in such a specific way on YouTube, that it limits browsing or coming upon something accidentally in the library that might be helpful. And also, there's not the opportunity, if you're getting a lesson on YouTube, to ask questions in the moment. You could be using another platform like Ask a Librarian or something like that, but it's just a more disconnected way of learning. So when I say folksonomies here, I'm referring to platforms such as Goodreads that are more book-specific, where anyone in the general public can tag a work with any kind of subject heading or genre heading that they'd like, and they don't have to have any type of literary or library expertise. So one advantage of that is that there tends to be pretty high cognitive relevance, meaning relevance among what various people think of when they think of a particular work, or the subject heading or genre headings that are given to that work. It can also be helpful when there's vast quantities of resources that need to be categorized, because it's obviously hard for catalogers to be able to research in depth or read in depth every single book that comes across their desk. So when you have a folksonomy, you allow anyone who's read the book to help out with categorizing that. There's also an inherent social relevance implied in folksonomies, because they reveal how a book has been received socially or politically. So people, I think, find that enjoyable, to know what their peers have thought of certain works. And it's very in keeping with the time. It's very current. Some disadvantages of folksonomies is that they can be lacking in topical relevance, and so that would be the literary relevance, like what subject it actually belongs in from a literary or academic perspective. And since there's no controlled vocabulary in most folksonomies, some do have a controlled vocabulary, but in most there's not. The subjects aren't limited at all. There are no preferred terms, so that can be just kind of inconsistent. And you can get many different subject headings that could maybe actually be condensed into one. And because of that, the folksonomy might not be intellectual or literary in nature, and it could kind of oversimplify what a work is about. So those are just a couple of social media platforms that I thought it would be helpful for academic libraries in the future to get even more on board with. And then you'll find my summary in the next slide, and resources at the end. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you.